Welcome to the channel. My name is Matthias. Today we're going to talk about the Ironheart TV series on Disney Plus. And boy, did I struggle to get through that. The middle part of the season was really a chore to finish those episodes. I stuck in there because supposedly the final episode was going to be like mind blowing. I was surprised with the ending. I think basically that was like the only good part of this whole series. So, without further ado, let's get into the breakdown. So, first and foremost, we have the central character, Ironheart, Riri Williams, who is played by, let me see here, Dominique Thorne. And the thing is, I just don't like this character. The way she's portrayed, like, there's so many negative aspects to Riri. And she's morally very gray. She has a chip on her shoulder. She does have somewhat of a victim complex. She is very narcissistic. And in a good writer's hands, you could do something interesting with this. But she comes off completely unlikable. And maybe the only thing that humanizes her is that she's dealing with post traumatic syndrome over the death of her stepfather and best friend. She has panic attacks and she's dealing with survivor's guilt. That part I thought was well done in general. But Riri does some really bad stuff during this season. And it's like the show didn't know what lane to go on, if they were building up a redemption story for a hero. And I was interested because since she was going down this very dark path, I didn't know if we were getting a origin story to a villain or at least a anti-hero. There's an AI in the armor, Natalie, and also Riri's mom that at moments tried to justify Riri's actions, and it really reminded me of WandaVision and Monica Rambeau, where they sort of justify everything Wanda was doing, in this case, in this series, Riri, and try to show off that she isn't like super evil or something like that. But in this case, like, they don't go as hard as Monica does in WandaVision. Again, with a good writer, you could get a really interesting story out of this. But with Riri, the way she's characterized, she's a dick during this whole series. She plays a victim. Even once she plays the race card to justify her actions, even the gang that she's working with, they also victimize themselves. I guess they're trying to justify their actions, but the way it's delivered, it's like, oh, it's on that limit. It's hard to get behind a character that is completely selfish and narcissistic. Like, she does realize that she's really fucking up in the back end of the series. She tries to fix a couple of things, but like emotionally, she doesn't know how to act at moments. And I don't want to be offensive to anyone that's seeing this, because I don't think this is a pejorative. Like, I thought they were going for this interpretation of Riri that she's a little bit autistic and she doesn't understand certain social cues. But nope. Now, let's get into the side characters. First and foremost, the most irritating was Riri's AI, Natalie, who is based off Riri's memories. And she was killed during this drive-by shooting. And the thing is that even though Natalie is sort of the heart of the series and brings out a little bit of the best of Riri, she is very, very irritating. And then we have Riri's mom, who again also is trying to understand what's happening with her daughter. And then she starts to do a couple things that make zero sense, and as a parent, I would not do. Then we have the Hood and his gang. Now, I was really let down because I really like the Hood as a villain. Like, the main idea with the character is that he is a low-level street thug that, like, even though he's a criminal, he does see himself like he's sticking it to the system. He creates this crime syndicate and he really takes care of the people that are under his command. The thing is that he becomes addicted to power. He finds this cloak that gives him like some stupid powers. Like, his original powers were pretty dumb. The thing is that he didn't realize that he was a puppet of Dormammu. During the Dark Reign, he played a pretty interesting role there. That's like an era within Marvel comic books. And the thing is that he loses the powers of his cloak and he becomes like fixated in trying to find other means of power. And it's interesting because the Hood becomes insanely fixated in trying to obtain power for power's sake, like it's a drug. Now, the Hood on paper in this series is interesting, but in execution, it's just he comes off pretty stupid. So in the series, he does have this small crime syndicate, and they go on these heists, and the Hood justifies his actions, like establishing that these companies are, at the end of the day, doing bad things. I can understand that angle there, but the thing is that he finds the heads of these companies and forces them to sign these contracts so he can get a stake out of those companies. I don't think contracts work like that. If you force someone to sign something in duress, that contract is null. And again, I thought the idea of the contract was pretty stupid. Like, sorry, like spoiler warnings. We had him signing contracts. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. And I thought to myself, oh boy, are those contracts for someone else? And we're going to get into that character further down the line in this video. Now we have the members of the Hood's crime syndicate, basically his minions. And like these characters are really stupid. Like he brings Riri into the fold. Ironheart becomes part of a crime syndicate because he wants money to be able to build her armor and develop her technology. I can't let this go. Like Riri leaves Wakanda behind, being that she has all the opportunities over there. She gets this major grant to study at MIT in the US. She really screws it up. She gets kicked out and it's their fault. And she justifies herself with all these stupid reasons. Well, let's get back to the crime syndicate. Now, the only interesting member, maybe there's two interesting members. We have the Hood's cousin, John, who plays like a cool role within the dynamic of the syndicate and with the Hood. He seems to be rotten through and through. Now, the other members, like you have like these two twins that are good fighters. Then we have another character called the Clown, who's an expert in explosives. Yeah, I guess. Maybe the drag character, Slug. How do you say they or he or she? Sorry, I'm old. I'm not from the States, so I'm not sure how to say that. Slug, that character was sort of interesting. Slug always felt like, I guess they, again, I don't know how to say that in English, had like a secret agenda, but that never really happens. Now, I have to say, like spoiler warnings, I really did like the incorporation of Ezekiel Stain in this series. I thought he was pretty interesting. But then they totally botched it when they converted him into a cyborg like super quickly. Instead of making a Riri series, they should have done a Ezekiel Stain series. That would have been fantastic. And maybe had Riri pop up as like a side character. That would have been a lot more interesting. Like the actor that plays Stain did a great job. So the main plot of the series is again Riri is strapped for cash because she squandered every single opportunity that was given to her. She falls into league with the Hood and his gang. They start going on heists. And then she realizes that what she's doing is really bad and that the Hood is possibly not only super evil, there's something more behind him and his cloak that we're going to find out in the series that this cloak's powers is fueled by Dormammu. Now, the thing that, like, outside of Ezekiel Stain that I thought he was sort of cool, that I really liked in the series, but it doesn't save it by no means, is the reveal how the Hood gets his powers. We have the fantastic casting of Sacha Baron Cohen as Mephisto. He does a great job. He makes a deal with the Hood, where obviously, due to Hood's ambitions and where he comes from in life, he's willing to make. He doesn't realize it's the devil. He gets powers. And after the confrontation between Riri and the Hood, where obviously Riri comes out on top, Mephisto steps in to try to make a deal with Riri because obviously he realizes that something's wrong with her. There's a possibility there. And to my total and utter surprise, Riri overheard guilt of the death of her friend. She makes a deal with Mephisto to bring her back from the dead. I don't know why she didn't bring her back and her stepfather. I was sort of dozing out. I watched it really late yesterday, but she only brings back her friend. She basically gives her soul to Mephisto. She basically becomes an agent of Mephisto. So let's see where they take the character. The thing is that since you don't empathize with Riri during the whole series, you don't feel bad for her, like that she's going to go down this very terrible path. So I'm going to leave this review here. I'm going to give this one a stupid score of 10. I think this one would be possibly the lowest ranking of all the movies and series that I've reviewed. So see you guys next time. Bye.